There's been widespread criticism to the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to overturn the Roe v. Wade ruling, which guaranteed the right to abortion. Now, our team tracked down the church in Dallas, Texas, that was involved in the 1973 ruling by assisting Jane Roe and others with access to safe abortion.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, earlier I spoke to the senior minister of the First Unitarian Church of Dallas, that's Reverend Daniel Kanter. I started by asking him to give us just a brief history of the church's involvement in getting abortion rights to be protected under the Constitution. Take a listen.
The background is in 1969, 1970, this church, which has always been a progressive church in Texas, which has always been a fairly conservative place. I mean, we've been here since 1899, this church. But the women were studying abortion, and they didn't all agree on the procedural issues, but they did agree that women should have the right to make these choices about their bodies. And in walked a woman named Norma McCorvey, who would become a Roe. We were in Dallas County. The district attorney was the district attorney Wade. And the women of this church wrote the first amicus brief in 1970 for the district court, found Sarah Weddington and Linda Coffey, who were the lawyers, and pushed this case forward through the district court and up to the Supreme Court. So all of my work that I'm doing today is on the shoulders of those courageous women in those days.
And it's so interesting because, typically the debate, not only in the U.S., but even as far as here in South Africa, is between those who are, let's call it religious, and I use that term quite loosely, and those who aren't. What perhaps might be the anomaly for those who don't know that the history of your church is this war, so to speak, was actually started by people within the church, as it were, which is counterintuitive.
Yeah, well, pre-Roe, there were hundreds, thousands of clergy in the U.S. who were actually helping patients get safe and legal abortions. The clergy of this church, who were part of what was called the Clergy Consulting Service, were driving patients to the Gulf of Mexico to go out in international waters to have abortions. The clergy all over the country were networks of support because they were receiving people in their congregations who were coming to them and saying, I can't have this pregnancy. What do I do? And they were counseling them. They were helping them discern. They were also helping them get safe and legal abortions when they wanted. So the thought that all religious people are against abortion is just wrong. It's wrong historically. And what happened really was in the post-Roe next 10 years, the evangelical church in America took this up as a political wedge. And they succeeded. They used emotional language. They said, we have to stop this killing of babies. And progressives used intellectual language, saying we had to support a woman's right to choose. And we lost the emotional battle in the public sphere. So those evangelicals pushed all the way to political power, which is what we saw through Reagan and then through the George W. Bush era and through Trump. And so they've succeeded to the point of having now a Supreme Court that is acting ideologically, which I always say in this country is a loss for everyone, not just for the winners and losers around this issue of Roe v. Wade, because ideological courts fray at the fabric of society. And so there's a well-documented history of both the support of abortion in progressive religion and the evangelical fight for power through that issue.
What about the theological war? Because it almost feels that this is part of what's at the heart of the contention, especially within the church. How do you reckon you fared insofar as that's concerned, for those especially who are interested in that discussion?
Sure. I take the moral high ground. I don't tend to say I know what God wants. That's what the anti-abortion people are claiming. They have some direct channel to God's understanding of the world. I don't get that. What I see is human beings right in front of me, their dignity and worth, patients that I've been working with. And I've been a volunteer chaplain, even while I'm running this large church, for 7 years in the abortion clinic. And I've seen 13-year-old girls, and I've seen college students, and I've seen military personnel, and I've seen women with 3 or 4 children, and I've seen everybody in society come through that abortion clinic. And what I always say is I make no claim on the unknown potential of the embryo. Theologically, I see the dignity and worth and the love of God in the person in front of me who has a driver's license, who has a family, who has a job. So we're talking different theological concepts here. Antis want to talk about the rights of the fetus as a godly conception, and they bypass the human being right in front of them. So Jesus said, love one another. He didn't say love of unknown potential of an embryo. 1 John 4 says God is love and love is God. So I'm trying to say to us, and my 500 years of progressive religion has said, do what Jesus did. Jesus helped the people right in front of him. He made no claims on fetuses. So, whether or not a fetus is divine conception or not, to me, the most important thing is the human life I can see and interact with. And theologically, I'm going to stand on that high ground.
Another one of the questions I wanted to just gauge from you was your reaction to the Supreme Court overturning this ruling, especially given, again, the involvement of this particular church. Yes, there was a leak. Many might say, yes, we expected it to get here. But once it actually happened, what went through your mind?
Well, we knew it was coming. I mean, we've been organizing for a couple years now for post-Roe reality, really. So, it was a gut punch. It felt like we knew someone was going to die in our family, and they did. And a lot of people are really upset. I mean, we had teenagers here in tears, because their rights have now been removed. We also have people, all kinds of people, Republican women walking in with envelopes of cash to help us help the patients that we're working with. So my reaction is, we knew it was coming.
For more context, are you able to tell us about, the kind of plight faced by the woman that you typically try to help through the work that you do?
I mean, look, I looked on the South African map. To get from Dallas to Albuquerque, which is where we take the poorest people, the people who live under the poverty line, who come through the clinic and can't get themselves to Albuquerque, it's about the same distance as from Johannesburg to Port Elizabeth. That is a long, long way. Someone who has no resources and 3 children is not going to do that alone. So they're finding us, and we're helping them through the clinic, helping them get to abortions in Albuquerque, that far away. And we're giving them spiritual support. And these are black, brown, and indigenous women, mostly. They're about 90%, because that's who lives under the poverty line in America. So I always say this is a war on the poor. If you're the poorest person in our society and you already have 2 kids, or you're trying to start a career, or you're trying to get through college, and you can't get yourself somewhere, and you have to, and in the end have a pregnancy, it's going to be a huge strain, not only physically. Physically having a pregnancy is the most dangerous thing a woman's body goes through, but also socially, in your family, and economically. So these things are really, it's really a public health crisis is what I'm saying. In Texas, there were 60,000 abortions a year, and that's just one state in the nation. We're a large state, but that's just one state. Even if half of those come to term, there's no foster service, there's no support system. We are the worst at supporting mothers in the nation. We have no health insurance for children. We have chipped away in this state at the support for poor families. It's a massive impact that's going to happen here.
Your critics will be quick to say that, the law is the law, and there should be a respect of the law in any progressive or robust democracy. What's your response to that?
Well, the governor and those who are governing this state are actually doing a lot of things that don't represent the popular notions in our state. So they've deregulated handguns it was something like 80% of Americans or Texans didn't want that to happen. I mean, I was talking with the Dallas police chief who went down to our state capitol to try to convince the governor and his folks that this was a crazy idea. Most people in America want abortion to remain legal. What we have is a gerrymandered system where the representatives, because they've created maps that favor conservative legislators, they're in control and they can do what they want. So we're going to continue to help people get out of this state where it is now illegal. It will be in 30 days completely illegal to get safe and legal abortions, because we have states around us that are trying to remain legal. So, I mean, that's kind of, the political issues of this whole thing are challenging, because we see so much of this wave of ultra-conservatism in America that is not serving us all and is not really the majority. It's just the loudest voice.
Speaking about the way forward, there's been fears among many who share your sentiment that this is the first ruling of many to come, that, there's other communities that might be next in line to be targeted by conservative lawmakers, as it were. Do you think that's an exaggeration, or there's real reason to be concerned?
We stand on the side of all our people here, and what I've been saying to them is we need coalitions. That this abortion issue is, because it's based on this lack of precedent in the Supreme Court's mind, and pushing it to the states, which, by the way, also is a bit of a contradiction with the Supreme Court's ruling about guns in New York, which basically said the state can't regulate that, and then the next day they said the state can regulate people's wombs. So, this is, again, an ideological court. We are concerned that they are going to go after same-gender marriage. We don't know how far they can push. Can they push for Brown versus Board of Education, which created the integration of our schools? Can they push for rules that South Africa would be familiar with around interracial marriage? How far will they go before there's really revolution in the streets? I mean, my concern is that the push is actually in service to a broader civil war here in this country that will solidify conservative and progressive states. And if that happens, we're all in real big trouble, because of the impact of the economy on the world, the impact on human lives. Anything could happen. But I have this feeling that that could be something that they're kind of pushing for in a very strange way. I mean, we're also seeing all the news about our former president who wanted to overturn the election and create an insurrection. So anything can happen, in this country. I mean, we're all fairly concerned about these things.
The possibilities are endless, and never have I thought that would actually get me worried. Reverend Kanter, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. Really do appreciate your helping us understand these issues a bit better, at least from your vantage point. Once again, really do appreciate your time.